So at this point, I'd love to introduce the Cloud Managed Wi-Fi Edinburgh College section of the webinar. Would you mind just introducing yourself, Karen and Julian?
Yes, no problem. Hi, my name is Karen McPhillips. I'm the IT Operations Manager at Edinburgh College. I'm responsible for the reliable operations of the entire IT environment here at Edinburgh College, which is across 4 main campuses and covers 20 different outreach facilities. And this includes the entire network infrastructure, the data centres, all of our different systems and services, which comprise of 4,500 desktops, 2,000 mobile devices, and we have an application portfolio of over 2,000 different applications. I'm also responsible for the business continuity and disaster recovery and the business transformation projects, and one of our recent projects being the deployment of our Meraki solution.
Perfect. Julian, would you mind giving us a quick introduction to yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Julian Ward. I'm a network engineer at Edinburgh College, and I was the project lead for the deployment of the new Meraki wireless system.
Perfect. So let's get into a bit about Edinburgh College. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about the college, a little bit of background, and just about the IT infrastructure setup you have there?
Yes, of course. Edinburgh College was formed on the 1st of October 2012, following the merger of Edinburgh's Telford, Julianesque and Stevenson College to become one of the largest colleges in Scotland. We have 4 campuses and over 20 different outreach facilities that we support. Through the merger, the college inherited a strong legacy of staff, infrastructure and reputation, and we continue to build on this. The college has over 26,000 students running over 900 courses, supported by over 1,400 members of staff, split between academic and support staff. The IT team consists of 42 full-time members of staff. The structure is separated into the IT management team, help desk, service support, field service, network, and the systems team and the in-house development team.
Great. So in terms of your previous network, would you mind describing what that looked like and the sorts of things that you had in place, and I guess some of the pain points of that particular network?
Yes, of course. As part of the merger, we inherited a range of older technology. So essentially, we inherited 3 different wireless networks that we tried to bring together. These were Juniper, Nortel, which is now Avaya, and the Cisco wireless infrastructure. And they were all supported on different on-premise controllers as well. These were all being managed separately over the last 2 years, and it required a large range of skills and experience to manage these, which also resulted in an increased overhead for the entire IT function. We struggled with the high density areas such as the libraries and the public access areas, and it required multiple access points, which continued to increase costs and overheads to fine-tune these, to increase these, and we were limited with the current infrastructure in terms of the density of access points per controller from a hardware and a licensing perspective, and also the cost to continue to ensure that these solutions remain resilient and highly available. There was a lack of consistency for standardisation and user experience across the different campuses. This is one of the key areas that we needed to improve. For example, one campus provided guest and visitor access, but the other campus didn't offer this. We did attempt to create a standardised service, but there was many technical limitations that hindered the ability to do this effectively. There was a mixture of 802.11a, B, G and even N access points, which all had different feature sets and obviously different throughput. And that resulted in a different experience depending on your location. There was a real lack of access points in specific areas throughout all the campuses, which would have resulted in a high cost to get this coverage that our staff and students demanded. And after a long investigations, we didn't think it would be a sound financial investment for what was legacy systems, so we decided to tender for a new solution.
Perfect. So that's how the project started then, and very sound rationale behind it. So what kind of requirements did you guys put together for the solution that you wanted?
Well, we tendered for a new wireless infrastructure which would fulfil our key requirements that I briefly mentioned, and these were: the entire solution had to be cost effective, it had to have high density coverage with a greater throughput so we could provide an excellent wireless experience for the staff and students using minimal wireless access points. We knew we wanted to bring in 802.11ac, and we wanted to ensure that the solution was highly available, it was scalable, it was secure and future-proof as well, but mostly we wanted a centralised management capability to reduce the amount of staff skilled and experienced to manage the service. Standardisation was absolutely key to this deployment, as many staff travelled to the different campuses, but they didn't enjoy the same experience. And in some cases, they had problems accessing wireless at all. We also wanted to have a mobile device management solution to manage our mobile endpoints, and we had originally considered this as a separate project, completely separate, until we discovered the Meraki solution.
Great. So in terms of the Cisco Meraki solution, what was it that really spoke to you about that, and in particular for your needs?
Well, we were first introduced to the Cisco Meraki cloud solution during our tender, and then we quickly realised that this met all of our requirements and with many further benefits that we hadn't originally specified. These were the high availability because no hardware controllers were required on premise. The ability to view the performance and the usage dashboard centrally were a real benefit. The tracking devices and users across all our campuses and a centralised management platform was great. And some of the extra features such as the social Wi-Fi and the CMX analytics were really useful, and we started to use these now and got some in the plan for future as well. We particularly liked the fact that the APs delivered the 802.11 AC, and that was one of our key requirements. So it provided us a greater bandwidth through using the 3 radios. So this allows us to meet the demands for the higher density areas, and in several cases a reduction in the amount of deployed access points, which enabled further cost savings for Edinburgh College. To be honest, we didn't actually take long to evaluate this solution, as we immediately saw the benefits of this, and we particularly liked the fact it was a cloud managed service and the ability to scale easily, quickly as well. And soon after we awarded this tender, we were able to quickly start the deployment because we had a very quick 4-week timescale to meet. So yes, we knew immediately that Cisco Meraki was our way to go forward.
Great stuff. So in terms of once you had decided, yes, this is the way you would like to proceed, how did you actually go about deploying the network, and how do you have various groups of people connecting to it today?
I'm going to pass you on to Jules, who led and project managed the entire deployment.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so essentially we looked at the prioritizing the deployment. Once we'd identified the sort of Cisco Meraki solution, we had a rough idea of how many APs we needed, but we needed to basically have a trial, if you like, a pilot site. So we opted initially to target the halls of residence where we'd had previously the most complaints about wireless coverage, etc. And so we started off by sort of assessing the coverage and how much coverage we needed. So we used some third-party tools, I think like house site survey software, to go in and assess sort of the RF obstacles, and do a bit of planning as well, because you can simulate all the Meraki access points in there. So we did that and then got a basis for our initial rollout. We then sort of handed over to the installation team, who went out to actually mount the access points and to add them into the dashboard. And it's really when sort of the Meraki solution came into its own in terms of how well it had been thought out. You know, you get everything in each kit for the AP. It comes with all the different fitting options, etc. So it was very rapid to actually physically install the access points and plug them into the network. They're actually, even the guys on the ground were able to use mobile phone apps to actually add in the APs directly into the dashboard and assign them to the network. So there's very little input required from the network team in terms of getting them onto the system, especially because, as you've mentioned before, we can pre-stage a lot of the config beforehand with the login to the dashboard. You don't need to wait for the equipment to actually arrive in. So that was a great help with the deployment and help us to meet the demands from management, which was to get this in as quick as possible. So yeah, we had to support eduroam for our staff and students, which I'm sure a lot of people who may be in this call know about eduroam, and it offers sort of educational roaming for staff and students going to different colleges. So we needed to have a compliant eduroam service, so obviously using 802.1x for staff and students. And we came across a few hurdles that were slightly different configuration compared to our traditional controllers that we had. You essentially, because you're not having a client access to Radius Box just to one controller, it's to several hundred access points. So we had to actually look at upgrading our Radius servers we went to server 2012 R2, which allows us to have a lot more devices. And we actually just had a subnet assigned on each campus for the access points, and had a shared secret for all of them. So across the 4 main sites, we only needed 4 different Radius client setups on the Radius server. So in terms of actually configuring that, it was very quick. And then above and beyond that, we used the built-in features of the Meraki dashboard and the APs to limit client access speeds, just to give a fairer sort of piece of the pie to everyone. So we locked that down to between 5 and 10 megabits, and then beyond that, we were able to then shape the traffic. Things like file sharing and online backup, things that would maybe ruin the performance for other people, we were able to throttle that back. And then in some cases with the layer 7 firewall, we're able to block things like P2P traffic and stuff as and when we needed to. Okay, and hidden SSIDs. Apart from eduroam, which are staff and students, we have some hidden SSIDs, as I say, for college-owned laptops, tablets, etc. And that all worked great out of the box, and we were using 802.1x for that as well, in some cases pre-shared keys. We're looking in the future to switch over almost entirely to 802.1x in the future. That's the plan anyway.
Perfect. So is there a separate SSID for students and staff, and or is it all on one SSID?
It's all on eduroam at the minute. We're looking into the future with BYOD that we'll change that potentially, but at the minute, for most of our needs, eduroam does that. We are in the middle of rolling out a sort of simple splash page login to complement eduroam for people that don't need the educational roaming, that just want access to resources quickly and easily.
Mm-hmm. Is there a guest access at all?
There is indeed, yeah. We're rolling out guest access using a splash page login and utilizing the guest ambassador feature that the Meraki APs offer. So essentially there's a splash page with a login screen that you can then actually register your email account and set a password, and then we have members of the IT team who are delegated to enable those users, so you can actually authorize a user for a couple of hours, for a day, etc. So very useful when we have people visiting for conferences and things like that who won't necessarily have eduroam set up, that we're able to give them access, because part of our connection via the Janet network for the internet means that we have to track all users, so we need them to have logins. So it was a good fit for that, because we get names and email addresses that we can assign to those devices and stuff, so it works very well.
Great. Just for everyone else's benefit, Guest Ambassador is basically a special kind of view, a limited view of the dashboard that essentially enables somebody at the front desk to register people onto the dashboard without actually having full access to everything. So in terms of actually, now that you've got Cisco Meraki deployed, what sort of benefits have you realized as a result of the cloud architecture?
Well, I mean, for sure, coming from the place where we had these multiple Wi-Fi systems, all separate management interfaces and stuff, it was a major boon just to have everything in one place where you could view the entire, or all the networks basically in one place.
Sorry, Julian, still with us? I think we lost sound for a second.
You can't hear me at all.
That's it.
That's it, yeah,
okay.
I can hear you now.
Sorry about that, okay.
That's all right.
So essentially, with the web-based dashboard, it basically let us see all our networks all in one place, much better overview of what was actually going on, and the sort of management of it was much better. As a cloud-based controller system, we were able to save quite a lot of costs as well with that. It was much better rather than having previously we'd have redundant controllers in each site. So you're talking about 8 controllers, hardware controllers. So it's a very, very expensive route to go down. So with the cloud management, having all that redundancy already in the cloud, it saves us a lot of headaches. And greater visibility as well. Yeah, so easy to view reporting with the ability to fault find from remote locations has been incredibly useful. With the event log, we're able to go in and across all the campuses, see what the devices are doing, see any errors that are popping up, and sort of act on that. And where we need more detail, you've also got the option to do direct packet captures from the access points, both on the switch side and on the wireless side, which is excellent. We can just fire those in and have a good look at exactly what's happening on the line. Equally, from a lower level, the desktop technicians, etc., are finding it much more useful now, being able to actually go in and do some fault finding themselves with the ability to ping devices, do basic checks, and basically do their own testing before then perhaps escalating calls if there's an issue that they can't resolve. So it's improved the efficiency of our help desk as well.
So how many people, or I guess how many staff members at Edinburgh College have access and deal with the dashboard on a daily basis?
There'll be about 6 network chaps and about 12 desktop people thereabouts, I think.
Okay.
All have varying degrees of access, and with the sort of you can tailor that, you can control the amount of access that they have based on just user groups and access to different networks. So we can restrict certain admins to only seeing the networks at their campuses, etc. There's also, I think, talking about another benefit of the cloud-based management is that you get new features on the fly as and when Meraki develop new stuff. It'll appear in there. There's no need for us to upgrade the controller. One of the most recent things I've seen is that there's now SAML authentication. So we'll actually, in the future, we'll look at switching over to using that to authenticate our admin staff. So we'll have even better control over the admins.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Okay.
So in terms of the results that you've experienced since having the network in place, would you mind talking through some of those?
Yeah, we're seeing an awful lot of clients now, much with the dashboard now, there's so much better visibility of the amount of users on our network, how much data they're using, and the services that they're actually using as well. The analytics are superb within it. Certainly at a glance, you can see quite a lot about what's going on in your network. And from those sort of analytics, we can then look to improve the service, based on how our clients are actually using it. Also, we're seeing a big uptake, obviously, in 802.11ac as new influx of students with new devices. We're already seeing a return on having 802.11ac with a lot more people in the 5 gigahertz band. So we're getting much less congestion on the network, better throughput for our clients.
Great. One of the things I think Karen was mentioning earlier on was the ability to standardize authentication across the campuses. I think it's fairly disjointed before, so now students can actually go between campuses and halls of residence without having to worry about how to authenticate.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been much improved. I don't think we've had a single complaint since we've completed the installation. It's really been a great success. Just, as I say, being able to roam between the different campuses and all the configurations are exactly the same. There's no sort of re-authentication being required, etc. So it's definitely, the students and staff are noticing a big improvement in how things are.
Perfect. So in terms of future then, do you have future plans for the Cisco Meraki network, or just generally ICT plans that you'd want to share?
Yes. We finished the deployment in 4 weeks, and we've been working on remediation, which is just fine-tuning the access points and adding more where required. We're now working, as Jules mentioned earlier, on the new Active Directory splash page, just to simplify the access, which is going to be more for the bring your own device type access, where staff and students can get access to internal resources and also for visitors. So that's what we're working on at the moment, and we hope to implement that quite soon. We also hope to deploy Meraki MX security devices to our outreach centres. I mentioned earlier we have 20 different outreach centres at the moment, and they currently use broadband and then VPN into our network, which isn't quite as seamless. With the Meraki MX security devices, we'll be able to give them an improved service, if you like, and they'll also get the improved security feature and the resilience that comes with this, because the device also offers the ability to utilise a 3G or a 4G device if the primary link fails. So it's a really good, resilient, secure service. We are also starting to manage our mobile devices through the Meraki MDM. We have 104 different iPads on it at the moment, and we are considering this solution as a complete MDM solution for Edinburgh College, to start looking at all our mobile devices and managing these through this. I think we also touched upon earlier that we're rationalising our SSIDs and to provide BYOD capabilities for all staff and students, and this will essentially allow them access to our internal resources, but again, it will be seamless in the background of how they switch to different VLANs and get on, and depending on your authentication methods. So we do have a lot planned. We do have a lot for the future planned. We're very happy with the solution, and we want to continue to improve on it.
Perfect. Thanks very much. One thing that I think is really interesting is the MX64W that you're looking at, particularly with the amount of 802.11ac devices you're seeing on your networks. You'll actually be able to provide at those outreach centres not only like very, very high security, but also that device offers fairly high-grade 802.11ac wireless built into it. So yeah, it's a great solution for you.
That and obviously the built-in the VPN function and stuff like that. It's definitely the way to go with a lot of our outreach centres. It'll reduce the configuration complexity quite a lot by using these devices.
Yeah, and you're not going to need any on-site IT there.
Exactly, yeah.
Absolutely. And some of our outreach centres are pretty large with quite a high density of users, so it is going to be an improved service to what they currently have as well. And we're looking at a lot of endpoint replacements. We have, as I mentioned earlier, over 2,000 mobile devices. These are These go through a 5-year replacement programme, and we do plan to ensure that they've got 802.11 AC as standard during this next refresh.
Perfect. I think that's really comprehensive. I think the next section, and what we can move on to, is taking a look at a live demonstration of the dashboard. So let me just flip over to my web browser. Oh, I've signed myself out, so let me just resume the session. So Karen and Julian have very kindly agreed for us to be able to share the network. So just for your benefit, guys, I'm using a read-only login, so I can't mess anything up. So I think Julian's going to talk a bit about some of the monitoring and configuration capabilities that they have in here, in particular how they have the network set up. So this is the very first view that they would see as they come into the dashboard, providing a really nice overview on Google Maps. First of all, showing where in Edinburgh they have Meraki devices deployed and the health of the network. Julian, do you want to describe what we're seeing here in the various campuses? Maybe we can then drill down into one of the networks.
Yeah, sure. Well, you're seeing here are 4 primary campuses. In the north, we've got the Granton campus, and then the east we have Milton Road, and then below it Midlothian, and across to the far left we've got our Sighthill campuses. So then 4 corners of the city. And we're seeing obviously a green light, which means all the APs are up and running and the service is happy. And then there's a wee sort of tab on the side here where we can get an overview of the usage of the network. So we can, at a glance, we can see how much data throughput there is, the top sites, etc. And then we can even expand that out. There's a wee arrow at the top there to expand that. You get a bit more information about it. And you can filter by, you can create tags, etc. to filter results. We aren't really using that much yet, but you can add in tags there. Just to simplify the views and stuff if you've got a lot of networks going on. And here, of course, you can see a summary of over the last week we've got over 5,000 clients. 118 SM clients there, ones that are managed with the MDM, and upwards of 2.3 terabytes of throughput. So it's a very busy network.
Yeah. Is it worthwhile digging into one of these networks? Which one would be a good one to have a look at?
We could look at Granton first if you like.
Yep, sure.
Okay, so yeah, this is the main overview for this network. So as you can see, we've imported our plans here into the dashboard. You can actually, you start out when you place them, you can overlay them over Google Maps and align them with the actual physical information you get from Google Maps and drop them in. And then you can add in, there's a drop down where you can add in multiple floor levels and then place all your APs, which is definitely, it's very much worth doing, and it'll also help in terms of channel planning and stuff, knowing exactly where the APs are. I think at the minute you'll see there's numbers in each one of the wee green icons there, and that's showing the current number of connected clients. You can change that just to clients, I think, and it gives you an average. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's an average over a period of time, number of connections. You can see at a glance your high density areas where you've got a lot of people accessing it. So whether you use that information in the future to maybe say, well, I'd like to supplement an extra AP there, you can get a lot of intelligence from this.
Yeah. In addition to any information that we're looking at here, which again, I think one of the biggest things once you've actually gone ahead and deployed Meraki that you can overlook is everything that you're looking at here is completely out of the box. As soon as you plug in access points and start getting all this information, it's all presented in this easy to digest format. There's no extra processing or any extra configuration on Edinburgh College's side to get all this great stuff out. So, for example, if I hover above any of these access points, this one over here, which looks like it's getting some usage, I'm presented with the name of that access point. We can actually click into it. So can we actually click into that?
Absolutely, yeah. Click away.
So again, all the information we're looking at here is completely out of the box. Do you normally or often have to go into this level of detail, or how often would you be using this sort of screen and all the information you see here?
On and off, it depends. If there's an issue with the access point, we've got an issue with a user connecting to it, then we can drill down to this level and see if there's any issues with the radius connection or VLAN status. And again, you can actually you have the option to look at the channel utilization on the access point, ping it, etc. So you can do some basic tests if you think you might have some issues there.
Yeah.
You see a lot of options there. You can reboot the AP, etc. You can also ping the LEDs, so you blink them, I should say. So if you haven't got the AP labeled, you can identify the AP if you're in a room and you think it's this AP and you want to check. You can then trigger the blink all these features, I should say as well, are available on the mobile apps as well. So you've got your phone in your pocket, you have access to a lot of this information.
And this is real-time information that we're looking at. So hopefully people online can see that this chart here showing Ethernet traffic flowing through the AP is actually moving around. So we're looking at real-time information going through this access point right now, and the actual client's connected to the AP right now.
You can see whether they're on 5 gigahertz or 2.4, what channel they're on, etc., and what SSID they're using, and also, which is useful, the signal strength that they've got as well. So you can see whether someone might be having problems because they're on the edge of the signal range, etc. Also, I think up at the top there, I'm not sure if on this AP or not, but you've got a picture of the map. Obviously, it'll zoom in on the area. I think we've just lost it there, roughly where the AP is. Sorry, the low quality maps I had to use here. They're not great. But you can also see there's an extra button there for photos. So you can actually take installation shots where the APs are. Yeah. So this is one of the campuses where we actually went around and did that. So it's quite useful. You can get a visual of where that is actually installed in the room. Should have actually been a bit of a wider shot than this there. Some of them are a bit tight. But, generally, if you get a shot of the room with the AP, it's quite a useful reference point. Yeah. Certainly, if you're not in that campus all the time, it's very useful.
And this is actually a feature that's integrated into the mobile app.
It is, exactly. So the person who've installed this will have taken that picture with their phone once they put the AP in and stuff, and it's all uploaded straight into the dashboard.
Yeah.
So it's very good.
Let's take a look at the client information that we look at. So if we go to monitoring clients, all of this, again, information is completely automatically collected. So everything we're looking at here, for example, is showing us all of the clients that have been connecting to the Granton network over the last week, but we can change the time period for whatever we'd like. And then we've got all this information about the clients and the applications they're using, and this is completely out of the box. So information such as description, last seen, amount of data they used, operating system they're running.
Yeah, and you've got extra fields, as you're probably going to say. You can add in extra information there if you want to see a few more options, like which 802.11 policy are using, the capabilities of the client, bits and pieces of notes as well. And a lot of very useful information. And I think, as you can see at the top as well, you can also see a breakdown in the application usage as well. You can sort of expand that and see what people are doing. I think as well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can add in custom ones as well. So if you want to make sure your charts always log information, say based on college, like certain websites your college hosts and stuff, you can have that in there. So it's always reporting on those.
Yeah, you can add a specific URL that you want to track, and it will show up as a segment on that. Yeah. One of the great things,
a lot more visibility than we got with our previous systems. We didn't have any of this kind of analytics at all, or if we did, it was very hard to access. Whereas this, it's very easy to go in and see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually a summary report as well. If I go to monitor and summary report, which actually gives you a really nice overview of just what's been happening on the network. Do you often use this?
I do actually. I go in quite a lot to see the sort of top talkers in terms of the APs, and also see who the top clients are and what they're up to and stuff as well. It's quite useful. Probably more from a security point of view. If there's a lot of throughput going on, I want to know what what those users are up to, what they're doing. So it's quite good from that point of view in terms of tightening up the network if we need to. In terms of, I think we'd seen before quite a lot of P2P traffic and stuff that we thought we were blocking, but people were getting through. So with the layer 7 stuff that you get from the APs, it was quite easy to block that at source.
Yeah.
And also the statistics of manufacturers as well, what types of devices are connecting as well is useful.
Yeah. So let's actually, while you're talking about the layer 7 stuff, take a look at how you have the network configured. So let's see about the SSIDs first of all. So would you mind just talking through the SSID, some of the stuff we were talking about in the PowerPoint?
Yeah, sure. So we can see eduroams here, the first network listed. So basically we're using 802.11x with custom radius server. So essentially we've chosen that, and then we're going to specify an internal radius server to use for authentication. So at the minute, this network's, we've been playing around with it. This one's limited at 2 megabits a second at the minute, and the client IP assignment is local LAN, which essentially is you're dropping it onto the local network rather than using Meraki DHCP, which we'll probably get onto in a minute. You can also see the VLAN tag that we've applied, and whether we're using any VPN tunneling, which we're not in this case. So you can see there's no splash page either, so it's just a straight 802.11x authentication. And then from there, if we want, we can go into edit the settings. If you want to jump to that, and we can actually see the access control. So this is where you're getting into the specifics of that connection. So again, it's WPA to enterprise with our own radius server, and we're allowing WPA 1 and 2. We haven't yet enabled 802.11r just because of compatibility with certain devices. We're probably going to wait till next year and then maybe switch that on. Splash page is none in this case, and then you can see below we're specifying our radius server, radius port, and that's essentially it in terms of the radius config on there. Very straightforward.
Yeah.
And then switching to the VLAN that we want. So yeah, you can see under the client IP assignment options, we've got NAT mode, which would be very useful for things like a visitor network where you can isolate them from each other and your actual network, and it just NATs everything out to the internet. But in our case, a lot of what we do, it's going to be bridged onto the LAN. So the AP will actually be running on a trunk port with sort of native VLAN for the AP itself, and then we'll have a series of VLANs that we use for our different networks, which you'll see if you scroll down. You can see there's a VLAN tag.
Yep.
For this, in this case, it's 54 for this network, and that's what we use for all our eduroam traffic. And then we're using dual band with band steering as well, which is a great feature where, you know, if a client connects and it's capable of doing 5 gigahertz, then the AP will have it switch over to use that network. So it frees up a lot of the 2.4 gigahertz range for the legacy devices, but pushes all the new ones to the faster 5 gigahertz.
Yeah. I mean, this is really great in that if you essentially know that this is what you want to set up, you could pretty much whittle through this one page in about 5 minutes if you have all these details to hand. And this then starts broadcasting across all the APs you have.
Yeah, and that the configuration at this stage we're looking at would be limited to that network at Grantham, but what you can actually do is do a configuration sync between your sites. So if you completely standardized everything, like the VLANs and everything, you can every so often you can do a synchronize, and it'll check the settings across all your networks, and if there's any changes it'll flag, or differences it'll flag it up, and you have the option then to overwrite those. So in terms of keeping things consistent as well, we're still working towards a position where we can have everything synced all the time. We have slightly different VLANs at different sites just from the merger of the colleges. So that's one of the things we're looking at to make this management even easier. You know, keep everything exactly the same.
Yeah. One of the things I think you were also talking about are the layer 7 stuff. So each and every Cisco Meraki wireless access point actually has a firewall built into it. So it enables us to actually apply some firewall and traffic shaping policies on the access point itself, even before traffic gets into your network. So let's take a look at it. Do you have any applied for this one?
I might do in this network. If you click on firewall and traffic shaping, then we can have a wee look. In fact, yeah, there's no shaping going on here, but we are denying peer-to-peer traffic on layer 7 firewall rules. So we're still in the process of playing with this. When we rolled it out, we pretty much tried to keep things as they were, but with the new equipment. So we've only just now started to play with this. But we're seeing benefits already with it just in the trial that we've been doing.
So here's a question for you then. In the previous kind of setup that you had, how long would you have estimated it would have taken to maybe configure the radius eduroam authentication we're looking at, and these two firewall rules, so the limiting of bandwidth and the peer-to-peer?
It's taken quite a lot. I mean, yeah, certainly. A lot our existing firewalls, a lot of them, I think 5 out of the 6 sites wouldn't actually allow us to do layer 7 stuff. They're older devices and stuff, so that wouldn't even been an option. And in terms of the other wireless controllers, as we had 3 different systems, it would taken quite a lot of time to configure and make all those changes and make sure that they matched up across the different networks. Definitely, I mean, I think we set up all the access control and the SSIDs in here, and probably in under a morning. You know, it was really that fast, and the fact that we could do it ahead of the equipment coming in as well. Yeah, it's like night and day.
Are there any other
on here, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point actually, because a lot of the time people will think that we're demonstrating this and there's actually some other work that needs to go on in the background, but there truly isn't. This is all you need to configure.
There really isn't. I mean, the only thing that had a wee bit of work was just configuring the network ports and stuff like that. You know, we had to go and change how they operated, but that again, that was very quick. We knew where all the APs were plugged in, so it was just a case of changing the config on them. So that was, you know, the actual Meraki stuff itself, very quick. You know, no time at all.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to highlight on the dashboard, and before we open up the Q&A?
I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to cover on here. I think we're pretty much there. Hopefully everyone will get one of these to play with then at the end of this webinar, but they really are. They're as simple as they look here. That you can have them up and running in no time at all, and port all your config settings over. I mean, as I say, we managed to do this in the entire college in about 4 weeks in total. You know, it was really rapid. So
yeah, and I'm guessing that bulk of the time was just the physical installation.
It really was, yeah. It was just getting access to the areas and being able to swap them out, etc. So that was the only time problems we had. You know, it certainly wasn't the APs or configuration in the dashboard.
Yeah. It was getting access to the actual rooms.
Yeah.
A lot of them were learning and teaching spaces, and we had 256 of them to deploy. So it was all in the installation.
Gotcha. So let's on that then. Let's open up the Q&A. Jackie's been very busy answering all the questions we've been getting. So if you do have a question at this point, please do ask it. I'm going to just review some of the questions we've been getting. Some of them will be for us. Some of them, Karen, Julian, will be for you. So I'll ask those out as when we get them. Great question here from Paul for you guys, Karen, Julian. How will the Meraki APs integrate with your existing wired network infrastructure?
Pretty good, yeah. We're predominantly a Cisco house. We've got some Nortel equipment which we're actually in the process of swapping out for Cisco, but we had absolutely no problems integrating them. In terms of the LAN config, the existing APs were all tunneling back to the controllers, so they were just on access ports, but we switched over to trunk ports, .1Q with native VLANs tagged, etc. And absolutely no problems. We even CDP and LLDP will show up all the AP information. I mean, I don't know if you want to steer into if we can change the network to say Milton Road, which is one of our sister ones.
Milton, this one?
Perfect, yeah. And then if you just change to monitor and access points, you'll be able to see obviously a list of our APs, and you'll see the Ethernet LLDP information. So even from here, I can tell exactly which switch stack the AP is plugged into, which Ethernet port, etc. So very, very easy if you need to go in and see where they are or do any work. You can get all the information from here.
Yep.
So yeah, there's absolutely no issues with integrating with our existing kit at all.
Yeah, and that was Cisco and Nortel kit.
And Nortel, yeah, the Nortel stuff was fine as well. There are no nasty surprises with that either, so they behave very, very well.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Meraki APs and actually all Meraki hardware will integrate perfectly well with existing infrastructure you may have from other vendors. The only thing that I mentioned I think earlier on, that you just have to take note of is you would only be able to manage the Cisco Meraki hardware from the Cisco Meraki dashboard.
Yep.
Good question here from Neil here, just for you, Julian. How are you managing hidden SSIDs on the college-owned devices? Is it manual setup per device, or how are you doing it?
It is at this stage. The laptops have a refresh once or twice a year, so in terms of we sort of have a configuration XML that we would use with the SSID information in it, and that gets deployed when they're imaging them through SCCM. In terms of the iPads and devices, the ones that we can manage through Systems Manager, we're able to create configuration profiles with the Wi-Fi settings, etc., and push them out to those devices, which works quite well. So yeah, so it is sort of a manual configuration, but again, I mean, obviously it's quite straightforward to create the sort of hidden SSID within the dashboard. There's just a little bit of work on the clients to get that config on there, but as I say, we've been in a lucky position where we've been imaging machines, and we've been able to do that at deployment time. Does that answer his question? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Question here asking about how did you find, I guess, the optimum positioning of the wireless access points and the optimum channel power? Was it manual configuration, or did you use the auto cloud-based stuff?
It was a bit of a mixture. Some of our APs are running on auto, and in some of the higher density areas, we actually opted to go for a manual config. I'm a bit of a control freak, and I just quite like to be able to do it myself. So, I mean, if you can click on the maps and floor plans, Milton Road.
Echo House site survey software helped us as well with that.
Just get it, yeah. So you can see in the top left of the screen, there's quite a high density of APs. In the square shape area. That's the halls of residence. If you want to zoom in a wee bit, you can see there's quite a lot of rooms. These are all brick walls, lots of fire doors and things like that. So this is one of the reasons why we actually decided that we wanted to play around with some third-party software. As Karen mentioned, the Echo House site survey, which let us actually overlay the floor plans and draw out all the obstacles like the brick walls, the doors, etc. And then we use that. That then has the specs for the Meraki access points, and you can actually, once you've drawn in everything, you can actually have it run a simulation, and it'll estimate how many APs you need for a certain density of users. So that's how we sort of tackled this area.
Okay.
It worked out very well, and this is one of the main problem areas that we had, and now there's no issues at all. But it did require some manual tuning. But to be honest, the APs themselves auto-configured to pretty much the right channels. We just made a few optimizations here and there.
Yeah. Question here from Ian asking, are all the APs wired gateways, or are you using mesh technology anywhere?
Good question. They are all gateways at the minute. We would possibly look at doing some mesh ones, probably for outdoor scenarios and stuff. I'd quite like to get some in outdoor spaces, but we aren't there with it yet. So mostly gateways. Interestingly, we've had some issues. We're replacing, obviously, as I think I mentioned, we were phasing out some of our Nortel equipment at one of the campuses, and we actually had some switches go down, but the APs actually stayed up because they were still getting PoE power, and then they meshed with neighboring devices. Yeah. So even though we're not actively using mesh, it does come into play if there's any kind of failures at the switch level. In some instances, you can still keep the access up for the wireless clients.
Yeah, it's a great example there. So all the APs, as kind of without you doing anything, are automatically meshing with other access points. And should any of them lose gateway, they actually automatically flip over into repeater mode and will mesh with the neighboring access point.
Yeah, if you wanted to click on one of those APs in this section here, they'll see the mesh neighbors and stuff like that. I think if you.
Yes. So if we go a bit further down. Here we go. These are the APs that they're meshing with. So probably if this access point lost connection to the gateway, it would actually borrow gateway from this little neighbor here, MIL008, and still be able to actually serve clients. Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
Question here that we get quite often, in fact I'd be interested to see what you guys got, asking how many concurrent clients can a Cisco Meraki AP handle? I don't know how many, the largest number you've seen on an access point in any given time.
You're asking. I've seen at least 20 or 30. I'm not, honestly, I don't often look at the exact numbers and stuff, but certainly I've seen upwards of 30 connections, no problems at all. I don't know, have you seen many more than that, Imran?
Yeah, so in our kind of testing of our own, we've kind of had over 100 connected, but one of the things we always recommend is we actually have a great free trial program here at Meraki, so you can actually take any of the Cisco Meraki hardware out for free, try it out on your own site. So if you were interested in doing this, we'd suggest taking out an access point that you'd maybe want to go with, putting it in your own environment, and then actually just seeing how many clients you can throw at it, because you're going to get a different result if you do this in a very rural environment with few other SSIDs flying around, compared to if you then again did the same test in a busy high street with lots of other SSIDs flying around. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to mention the air marshal and stuff at this stage. It's quite useful in the RF spectrum stuff.
Yeah, the Air Marshal feature that Julian is referring to is actually a built-in feature on the access point side of things, which really provides best-in-class wireless security, particularly on the ML34, which I think Edinburgh College have a few of. They actually have 3 independent radios. One is actually a dedicated security radio, so that one radio is actually able to 24/7 look out and search for rogue SSIDs and devices, and actually quarantine those automatically if any are found, while still simultaneously being able to serve clients at both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz radio frequencies, giving you an aggregated throughput of around 1.75 gigabits per second. So really a very high density AP as well. Yeah, great question. So we are just about gone a little bit over time here. I'm just seeing if I can spot any one final question before we wrap things up. Here's a good final question to end up on. Do you have any requirements for roaming within the college, and have you experienced roaming on Meraki, and what sort of performance did you get?
Yeah, roaming's been fine. We're doing layer 2 roaming pretty much everywhere at the minute. So within a campus, each of the campuses you're dropped onto the same VLAN, so you will get layer 2 roaming. in some instances, obviously, we've had to adjust the location of the APs to make sure there's no drop in coverage between areas, but generally roaming's been fine. We've had occasional issues, but with Apple devices being a bit sticky in terms of which AP that they want to stay connected to, but we've had that with other manufacturers as well. It just seems to be the way they are. But generally, very very good experience with the Layer 2 roaming, and I think there's the option of Layer 3 roaming now with the Merakis as well, but we haven't tested that.
Great. Well, Karen, Julian, thank you very much for your time today. I don't know if you guys had any final thoughts before you do wrap up.
Just get your free AP and have a go at it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how well it all works.
Great. So, guys, from my point of view and our point of view here, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. It's been a pleasure learning about how you came to hear about Meraki and what you have deployed, and actually being able to see that live as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Hope you have a great remainder of the day. Thanks very much now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.